Man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. Neville Goddard said that. Now pause and really consider this. If your consciousness is the only true cause, what does that say about the world we've agreed to believe in? What if you've never truly responded to the world, but only ever responded to your own self-concept, reflected back? That single realization is powerful, and it's terrifying, not because it's false, but because it means you are responsible, entirely. And here's the paradox. The moment you accept that consciousness creates reality, you begin to live in a way that makes others uncomfortable, not because you're strange, but because you've stopped agreeing with their limitations. Imagine this. You're at dinner with old friends. The conversation turns to money and someone says, well, with inflation and the economy the way it is, it's just not possible to get ahead anymore. And you sit there silently thinking, that may be true for you, but it's no longer true for me. You don't argue, you don't need to, because something inside you has already moved. You've assumed a new state, abundance, freedom, certainty. But here's the challenge. You look around, and suddenly you're a foreigner in your own land. Not because you changed your clothes, your job, or your address, but because you changed your consciousness. And consciousness, my friend, is everything. This is the first great silence the manifestor must learn to carry, to know a deeper truth while appearing normal in a world of agreement. Neville once said, to be conscious of being rich while poor is to be rich. It is only a matter of time before you become what you are conscious of being. But to walk that road, to declare I am when the world says you're not, that requires courage. Not the courage to fight others, but the courage to feel something real inside you and stay loyal to it, without needing the world to clap. Have you ever felt that quiet tension? That moment where someone says, be realistic, and you feel a small fire inside say, no, I'd rather be real than realistic. This is the loneliness of the awakened dreamer, not because you are better, not because you've ascended, but because certainty feels like arrogance to those who rely on permission. Imagination, you'll discover, is a private act. It's rebellion without noise. It's vision without spectacle. And most of all, it's isolation. Why? Because to assume a desire is already fulfilled, while everything around you says the opposite, is to walk through life no longer seeking consensus. You've left the group mind. You've become the silent mystic, the peaceful revolutionary, the one who says it is done before anyone else sees how. But don't confuse the silence for weakness. In that stillness is power, because the moment you no longer need the world to believe you, the world begins to reflect your belief. So I'll ask you this, and pause really. Have you ever dared to believe in something so deeply that you became quiet about it? Let's continue. Let's go deeper into why the world calls it delusion, but you know it as the truth. When you assume a new state, wealth, love, health, freedom, and you feel it with conviction, something strange begins to happen. The world doesn't immediately applaud you. It recoils, not because you've done something wrong, but because you've stopped reflecting the collective agreement. You've become a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see in it. You see, when you live from the end, when you feel yourself to already be what you desire, you no longer match the expectations others have silently placed upon you. And this creates a disturbance, not outside, inside them. Neville said, dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part. But he didn't say the world would clap while doing it. The truth is, many people feel confronted by your freedom. Not because they understand it, but because it exposes something they've been avoiding, their own unexplored power. Think of it like this. You walk into a room holding the calm, felt energy of someone who knows they are loved. You haven't announced it, you're not showing it off, but your being carries it. And then someone, perhaps even someone close to you, begins to act distant, defensive, or even irritated. Why? Because on some subtle, subconscious level, your peace reveals their unrest. This is the great irony of manifestation. The more aligned you are with your inner world, the more you may unsettle the outer one, at least at first. Why? Because most people are still reacting to appearances. They believe in effects, not causes. And when you show up as the cause, when you declare I am in silence, they don't know what to do with you. It doesn't fit the script they've memorized. It's not just strangers who may react this way. Sometimes it's the ones you love the most. They may say you've changed, or you're being unrealistic, or the classic, you're delusional. But let me ask you something real. Which is more delusional? to live from a state of power, peace, and fulfillment before it appears, or to spend your life reacting to what already is, never realizing you can change it. The discomfort others feel is not your burden. It's their own unclaimed authority knocking at the door. Neville wrote, "To be conscious of being healthy is to be healthy, regardless of what the body says." That level of inner allegiance makes the old reality tremble, not just for you, but for anyone still trapped in it. You're not here to make people comfortable. You're here to remember who you are. And that remembrance and that silent inner shift will radiate outward, not always in praise but in proof. So what if the next time someone doubts your belief, you didn't explain or defend? You simply remain still in your assumption. The state you live in is not only shaping your life, it's showing others what's possible, even if they're not ready to see it yet. Are you willing to keep being that mirror, even when the reflection unsettles those around you? Evolution prefers agreement, not imagination. From a biological standpoint, agreement meant survival. To conform to the group, to align with the tribe, kept you safe from threats. To see something no one else saw, to feel something that hadn't yet appeared, would have made you the outlier, the exile, the risk. And though the world has changed, the programming hasn't. So when you begin to live by imagination, when you claim an unseen reality as your truth, the ancient part of the mind sends a warning. Don't stand out. Stay inside the lines. Don't believe what others haven't yet validated. But the law of assumption requires the opposite. It demands solitude. It demands self-trust. It demands that you know before others agree. Neville said, "Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality." And what does that loyalty feel like? It feels like walking upstream, while everyone floats comfortably down the river of consensus. You feel the resistance, not because you're wrong, but because you're alive in a way most have forgotten how to be. You may start to wonder, why does it feel so strange to believe in my own power? Why does assuming my desire is fulfilled make me feel like I'm doing something wrong? Because the old survival code whispers, don't go alone. And yet, all transformation begins in that very solitude. It begins in the silence of assumption, when no one claps, no one confirms, and no one sees what you see. You become the seed underground. Nothing to show, no evidence, no applause. Only the inner conviction that something is already unfolding. And society, built on logic, repetition, tradition, doesn't know what to do with that kind of power. Schools train you to recall facts, not imagine futures. Jobs reward obedience, not originality. And most systems reinforce what has been, not what could be. So the manifester must evolve beyond evolution itself. You must rewire the instinct that says fit in, and instead live from the inner fire that says stand within. This is not rebellion, it's creation. Creation doesn't ask for agreement, it brings something new into being. And that new always looks like madness until it works. So here's the question. Are you willing to become internally loyal to a vision no one else has seen, even if it means walking alone? Because evolution may prefer agreement, but your soul came here to imagine. Groupthink rejects the power of the individual. There is a hidden rule in every society. Do not question the boundaries. And whatever you do, do not step outside them without permission. But manifesting violates that rule at its core. To live from the end, to feel something real within before it is recognized without, is to declare, the rules of this world do not define me, I define them. And groupthink, the silent agreement of minds to stay within what's been proven, doesn't take kindly to that. Neville once wrote, "Dare to assume you are what you want to be and you will compel every event to conform to that assumption." That line alone threatens the entire structure of externally governed reality. Why? Because if assumption determines outcome, if inner states determine outer facts, then every hierarchy built on fear, lack, and authority begins to crumble. Imagine someone who no longer seeks validation from systems, roles, or titles. They don't need a certain income to feel rich. They don't need a relationship to feel loved. They don't need a stage to feel seen. They've returned to the center, the I am within, and from that center, they imagine their world into being. This is not fantasy. This is authorship. But the group doesn't know how to handle an author who writes without approval, so it responds with ridicule, dismissal, labels like unrealistic or irrational, not because it understands you, but because it can't control you. And deep down, that's what collective thinking craves: predictability. When someone begins to act outside the script, others feel unsteady. Your freedom suggests that their cage was optional all along, and that is confronting. So what do most do? They trade their power for acceptance. They choose the comfort of the crowd over the calling of their own creative imagination. But you are not most people. To assume is to step beyond the circle. It is to live by conviction, not consensus. And while the world may call it delusion, what it's really saying is, you've left the script and we don't know how to follow you there. But you're not here to be followed. You're here to create. So ask yourself, where in your life have you waited for permission to believe in something already alive inside you? And what would it mean to stop waiting and start assuming? Let's slow it down for a second. If part of you has ever felt like the outsider for seeing life differently, for sensing there's more to reality than what's been handed down, then you'll want to check the pinned comment below. I left something there that speaks to that quiet knowing in you, the part that doesn't need proof, just a reminder. All right, let's move on. Psychological biases resist inner power. Most people do not reject manifestation because they've studied it and found it false. They reject it because it asks them to do the one thing their mind has been conditioned to avoid: believe without evidence. To the rational mind, that feels like a betrayal. From childhood, we're taught to trust what can be measured, repeated, explained. And yet the essence of manifestation is unseen knowing. It is feeling something into form before any physical sign appears. Neville said, "Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality." But loyalty to the unseen goes against deeply ingrained cognitive habits. We are wired for confirmation bias. We seek proof of what we already believe. So when someone imagines wealth while surrounded by lack, or assumes love while alone, it seems illogical. The mind screams, "Show me the results, and then I'll believe." But Neville reverses the equation. Believe first. Live from the end. Feel it now, and then the world will rearrange itself to reflect it. To many, this feels like madness, because it is not how we've been taught to survive. But you didn't come here to survive. You came here to create. There's another bias worth naming: the need for external validation. Most people don't want the truth. They want reassurance. They want the world to nod before they act, clap before they move, agree before they believe. But manifestation, true manifestation, begins in private silence. It starts when you stop outsourcing your authority. It begins when you ask yourself, what would I feel if I knew this was already true? How would I walk, speak, decide, and carry myself if the world I desired was already mine? That question, repeated sincerely, rewires the mind. It creates a new bias, a loyalty to the feeling, not the fact. Neville called it living in the end, not hoping, not wishing, dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled. So the next time the voice of reason says, "You're being delusional," ask it gently, or am I simply ahead of the evidence? Because once the state is assumed, the facts are already on their way, and they will arrive not to convince you, but to confirm what you already dared to feel. The question is, can you stay loyal to your unseen knowing, even while the world offers you nothing to support it? Social media rewards spectacle, not substance. We are living in a world that is louder than ever before. Every second a new opinion is posted. A new video flashes across a screen. Someone shares a success story, a crisis, a transformation, a critique. The air is thick with declarations, noise, performance, and in the midst of it, the most powerful act of all, imagining quietly, assuming privately, persisting faithfully, seems invisible, almost laughable, because it cannot be liked, it cannot be tracked, it does not announce itself. Neville Goddard taught that imagination is the beginning of creation, but our modern society often treats imagination as decoration, not foundation, something nice to indulge in after all the real work is done, or worse, something to mock, unless it comes pre-packaged with hard evidence. Social media has conditioned us to believe that truth is only valid once it's been witnessed, that a transformation isn't real unless it's broadcast, that a belief isn't powerful unless it's been verified by likes, comments, or applause. But manifestation begins in silence. Its movements are internal, slow, sacred, and often unnoticed. You do not get a standing ovation for the moment you finally assumed, deep within yourself, that you are already whole. You don't go viral for deciding in stillness to feel the end of your desire. Instead, you walk the world holding a secret. Your state has changed, even if nothing around you has yet. And that makes you invisible to the external world for a while. The question is, can you remain faithful to your imaginal act when the world is obsessed with documentation? Can you choose feeling over spectacle? This is no small thing. The algorithms of attention favor noise, quick dopamine hits, immediate gratification. They do not reward quiet assumption, daily inner work, or unseen revision. They reward storytelling, but only if it's packaged as a public declaration of, "Look what I did." And even then, only if the results are dramatic enough to interrupt the scroll. But the true manifester isn't seeking interruption. They're cultivating alignment. This path does not come with instant feedback. You may spend days, weeks, months assuming a new state with no visible sign. While others gain applause for showing off an outer win, you sit quietly with your inner conviction. And in that silence, your new world is gestating. The danger is this: when surrounded by so much external validation, the manifester may begin to question their own process. You might start to think, am I doing this wrong because no one sees it? Is it working if there's no proof to post? And that's where the old identity tries to sneak back in, the one that needs to be seen to feel real. But Neville made it clear, the only reality is consciousness. And consciousness does not require an audience. A change of feeling is a change of destiny, not a change of appearance, not a change of applause, a change of feeling. Let that settle in, because feeling is quiet. It doesn't shout. It is not aggressive or performative or desperate for attention. It is knowing. It is the whisper that says, it is done, even when the world insists. It hasn't happened yet. And here's the paradox of the age we live in. The more society screams for visibility, the more radical it becomes to be still, to not explain yourself, to not document every step of your inner journey, to not perform your transformation for others to approve. In fact, the greatest act of creative defiance you can make today is to persist in your unseen reality. Because once it becomes seen, and it will, then they'll ask how you did it. And you'll have to tell them something far too simple for the mind to accept. I imagined it. I felt it. I became it. Long before it showed up. That answer will not trend. It will not impress. But it is the only truth that matters. Consider the life of a seed. It doesn't sprout in public. It breaks open in the darkness. It transforms where no eye can see. Only later does it emerge, fully formed, as if from nowhere. That's how states manifest. In private, persistent belief. In the inner temple of imagination, long before anything appears in the external gallery. So ask yourself, can you remain loyal to your imagined reality while no one else sees it? Can you celebrate the internal shift even when the world offers no confirmation? Can you value stillness in a world obsessed with motion? Because this is what it means to manifest, not to impress the world, but to rewrite it from within, to become what you choose, not what is popular, to feel your desire fulfilled so fully, so richly, so presently, that the need to prove it disappears. That is the work. It is sacred, and in a world that rewards noise, your silence is revolutionary. So next time the digital world pulls at your attention, whisper back, I am not here to perform my power. I am here to assume it, and let that be enough. Society calls it delusion until it works. There is a strange law in the history of human progress. Every truth begins as blasphemy. Every breakthrough is first dismissed as madness. Not because it lacks value, but because it threatens the known. You see, society doesn't fear your imagination because it's silly. It fears it because it's sovereign. And sovereignty doesn't wait for consensus. Galileo dared to say that Earth was not the center of the universe. The world called him a heretic. Tesla spoke of invisible energy that could travel without wires. He was branded eccentric, unstable. Van Gogh died penniless, unseen, only for the world to later declare his vision's genius. In every age, the one who sees what others deny is ridiculed until the world catches up. And so it is with the manifester. To assume your desire as fulfilled, while the facts, data, and logic scream the opposite, is to walk in a realm beyond the five senses. And that realm, though invisible, is where reality begins. Neville Goddard said, "To believe what your senses deny is not madness, and it is creation. But make no mistake, before the world sees what you see, it will call you naive, irrational, even delusional. This is the cost of living from the end. You will be misunderstood, not because you are wrong, but because you are early. The world has always been suspicious of what it cannot yet measure. It fears the invisible because it cannot control it, and manifestation is invisible until it isn't. By the time it becomes visible, the crowd forgets what they once mocked. They rename your delusion vision. Your faith becomes strategy. Your persistence becomes proof. But you must live through the middle, the uncomfortable, lonely middle, when it's still only real to you, when others offer advice soaked in fear, when voices around you whisper, "Be careful, be realistic, don't get your hopes up." Why? Because the manifestor challenges the very foundation of how others believe life works. You're not reacting. You're initiating. You're not waiting. You're selecting. You're not pleading. You're assuming. And that assumption bypasses every traditional gatekeeper of reality. Governments, schools, institutions, experts, all lose their grip the moment you realize, I do not need their permission to believe what I feel to be true. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. Neville put it plainly. You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it. So why does society call it delusion? Because most people are trapped in causality. They believe that effects determine causes, that what is seen determines what can be felt. But you are reversing the current. You are letting feeling give birth to form, and that reversal terrifies the mechanical mind. It cannot control what it does not understand. So it resists, it projects, it laughs, until one day it cannot, until your vision stands in front of them, undeniable, grounded, formed. Then they ask, how did you do it? And if you're honest, you'll smile and say, I assumed it, I became it. I lived in the end, quietly, consistently, until the end became visible. And they'll nod, as if they understand. But they won't, not yet. Because to understand, one must first believe. And to believe, one must be willing to look foolish. So I ask you, are you willing to be called delusional if it means becoming free? Because history shows us, always, that those who change the world are first ignored, then resisted, and finally revered. You are not delusional. You are daring. And one day, the world will see what you already know. Manifestors challenge reality's gatekeepers. There's a quiet danger in manifestation, not because it harms others, but because it bypasses their control. To live by assumption, to say within yourself, I am now what I desire to be, is to reject every external authority that claims power over your future. It is not a rebellion with fists raised. It is far more subversive than that. It is the silent withdrawal of belief in the systems that taught you to wait. Wait for the degree. Wait for the diagnosis. Wait for the opportunity, the permission, the luck. Wait for someone to name you worthy. But when you assume, you stop waiting. You begin from the end. And in doing so, you render irrelevant the entire structure built on waiting. Neville Goddard wrote, change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. This is not a metaphor. It is a law, and it undermines the very foundation of institutional power. Because if the individual is the operant power, if reality bends not to orders, policies, or precedent, but to consciousness, then every gatekeeper becomes unnecessary. You become the author, the selector, the decider. This is why manifestors are quietly feared, not because they take power from others, but because they remind others that they never needed to give it away. Imagine a society built on dependence, a medical system that says health is a matter of diagnosis, an economic system that says wealth is determined by the market, an educational system that says intelligence is measured by compliance, a spiritual system that says salvation is granted by external approval. Now imagine someone who walks through all of that, healthy, wealthy, brilliant, and fulfilled, not because they fought the system, but because they no longer believed it had authority over them. This is what a manifestor does. They assume the state. They enter it in imagination. They persist until the outer world conforms, not through force, but through law. You are free to choose the concept you will accept of yourself, Neville said. Therefore, you possess the power of intervention, the power which enables you to alter the course of your future. But intervention begins within, and the world cannot regulate inner choice. That's what makes it threatening. When you live from your own center, when you believe your assumptions more than the reports, more than the expert opinions, more than even your past, you are no longer easy to govern, not politically, not culturally, not emotionally. And this frightens those whose power depends on your compliance. They may not say it outright. They may label your conviction unrealistic, They may pathologize your belief, mock your faith, or demand your credentials. But beneath it all is a fear they rarely name. What if you're right? What if you don't need them? What if reality truly is a mirror, not of the world's rules, but of your inner state? The manifester lives with this knowing, and in doing so, challenges every structure that profits from doubt, not through argument, not through protest, but through transformation. You walk into the bank as though abundance already belongs to you. You enter the clinic as though healing is inevitable. You wake up each day assuming you are already the version of yourself that once felt far away, and the world must respond. It cannot help but reflect the dominant state you persist in. So ask yourself, where are you still asking for permission? From whom are you still seeking validation? And what would it mean to assume your power without apology? Because the truth is, you are not dangerous because you break the rules. You are dangerous because you no longer need them. To assume a new reality while the world reflects the old is to live in tension, not outer conflict, inner contradiction. You declare it is done, yet your senses insist it hasn't happened. And this, for many, becomes the breaking point. But Neville never promised ease. He revealed a principle. Persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled, and it will harden into fact. The question isn't if it works. The question is whether you'll remain loyal to the unseen long enough for it to become seen. So how do you stay sane in this gap? First, return to the feeling. Facts shift, appearances deceive, but feeling is the truth beneath it all. Neville said, "You rise in consciousness by dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Feel it not with force, but familiarity. Walk as if it's already yours. Let the assumption become your emotional baseline, not a performance, but a presence." Second, seek no validation. The world may not recognize your new identity, not yet, but your power lies in remaining unchanged by its blindness. You don't imagine to convince others. You imagine because it is law, because what you assume with feeling, you inevitably become. Third, value inner silence. Imagination whispers. It does not argue, defend, or beg for attention. So be still. Revisit your desired state not through effort, but through calm repetition, especially in moments before sleep, when the gate to the subconscious is most open. Assume, feel, and drift off with the end alive within you. Let others doubt. Let appearances delay. None of it matters. What you consistently feel is true, in time, must appear. You are not being delusional. You are being faithful. And faith, Neville said, is loyalty to the unseen reality. So remain loyal, not with tension, but with quiet, steady confidence, because the world will soon catch up to what you already are. From classrooms to boardrooms, society favors obedience over imagination. You're rewarded for repeating what's known, not for creating what hasn't yet been seen. To live by assumption is to defy this. You don't wait for titles, approval, or external evidence. You feel the end now, and let the world adjust later. Neville said, "The world is a mirror, forever reflecting what you are doing within yourself. But that inner doing, imagining, assuming, persisting, often goes unnoticed, even ridiculed, until it works. Suddenly, what was called delusion is rebranded as brilliance. But between the two lies solitude, misinterpretation, and silence. Most aren't ready for this path. They need the world to nod before they believe. But you, the manifester, are learning to move without permission. Your inner state is not only creating your world, it's challenging the structures that taught you to doubt. So when others dismiss your quiet faith, remember, they will believe it once they see it, but it only becomes visible because you believed it first. Assumption may look like delusion until it reshapes your world. You don't need to explain it. You only need to feel it. Neville reminded us, what you are conscious of being, you become. If something in this message spoke to your deeper knowing, if you're ready to move beyond appearances into authorship, then don't leave just yet. Check the pinned comment. It's not for everyone, but it might be exactly for you.